would like to call to order the regular Board of Education meeting for Wednesday, August 21st. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Brady.
Present.
Mrs. Capabianco. Here. Mr. Cavanero. Mrs. Mona here. Mr. Kisco.
Here.
Mr. Marola.
Here.
Mr. Nargi.
Here.
Mr. Rivero.
Here.
Mr. Tebow is sick. Mr. Traub.
Here.
Mrs. Batchelder. Here. Mr. Campolita.
Here.
Mrs. Clarko has to be excused. Mayor Bingham not here.
Thank you. School community session, public participation. The board invites members of the community to speak on topics to be addressed in the agenda or on other topics of interest. Individuals wishing to make comments are requested to fill out the speaker sign-up sheet, including name and address, which must also be stated at the beginning of your comment. The board will not allow comments regarding specific staff members or personal grievances. Courtesy is expected in this limited public forum. Participating time will be limited to 3 minutes per person and 10 minutes overall to guarantee an efficient operation of the entire meeting. Do we have a sign?
Mr. Battle?
Mr. Battle?
Yes.
Good evening, William Battle, 69 Red Mountain Avenue, Torrington. Here we are, we find ourselves again at the beginning of a school year, and I would like once again to say that I view this situation as a partnership between myself and the school system. I have done my part. I delivered a school, to the school, a child who was ready for kindergarten, so he didn't have to worry about going to Head Start or anything like that. I did indeed deal with the school system from Forbes all the way up in a way that was engaged. I even had once or twice for Mrs. Beach to stir the green eggs and ham. I was a reader in the first grade at Mrs. Crackett's room, and some of my students I see are in high school now and doing quite well. So I think that I have done my part in the partnership, and I ask you now for 2 reasons. If I send my son to private school next year, it will draw away from the money I have for his college. So I'm asking you to do one thing and one thing only. I've done my part, and I'm asking you to do yours. Make sure that no matter what the changes are, and for whatever reasons, we do not lower the standards of the high school. Do not teach down, do not allow it to happen, for whatever reason. Remember one thing. This year, I will be celebrating one thing, honor students. The reason for that is I understand that honor students, even honor students in our school system, may not be paid the proper attention, and things can happen to them that should not happen, that are not intentional. But the simple fact that you may be paying too much time at the other end of the spectrum and not enough time for your honor students. Honor students have equal rights as any other student in our school system, and I will be here to make sure that I protect not only my son's rights, but the rights of those kids that were in my reading class at Forbes, who are now 27 of them that will be coming into the high school. Thank you, and I think this is a very serious thing for all of us. We have to celebrate our best students, the highest students. There may be students that have some issues, but that doesn't mean that we have to leave them, our honor students, behind. That's wrong and should not be tolerated. Thank you.
Thank you. Sally Borough.
Good evening. The end of the summer. Everyone's excited and nervous. My name is Sally Tino Perla. I live at 157 Revere Street. I have 2 children in the high school, one senior, one sophomore, both great kids. I also have been involved in schools right from the start. As a taxpayer and a parent and an educator in another district, I have some concerns I'd like to express. regarding the reorganization of administration at TMS and THS. From my perspective as a parent and taxpayer, it appears that the reorganization decision took place somewhat behind closed doors without full disclosure to all board members or the public. I remember change was discussed, but not specifics through the school year that I can recall, and I was really paying close attention during the budget process, the budget season. So when something of this nature is done in this manner, I begin to lose confidence, and I start to worry and my concerns grow. The rationale was unclear to me of why this huge change was happening. Moving a dedicated principal from THS to another school so abruptly is also a concern, especially when coupled with movement of a 20-year veteran assistant principal in the same school. Again, the rationale is unclear, and I lose confidence in board, superintendent. I'm concerned for safety of my children, all the children. I'm not sure that they're safe. I don't feel confident that they are safe on a daily basis. Who's the commander-in-chief? We have one person now who's in charge of both schools. Who makes the hard decisions in a crisis? And who do the teachers depend on? We pray nothing would happen, but we know it can. And I would like to be absolutely positively certain that my children and the others are safe. And now we have a new hire just 1 week before school begins to run both schools, unfamiliar with those schools, and with barely a job description. So I'm wondering if all of this is actually in the best interest of our children. I am also concerned now because I just learned that the guidance has made, there's been changes in guidance counselors, and now my son, who is a senior, he had one guidance counselor who was wonderful for freshman, sophomore year. He had another different one last year who was also wonderful, but now as a senior, he's going to have someone new who doesn't know him, and at such a critical point when he is in this college process. So I'm very concerned that there are these major changes that directly affect our children, and again, I don't understand the rationale, and I just ask you to really, as you look ahead or look behind or see this, please make the best decisions possible and understand the ramifications, the unintended consequences, and please consider that. And I thank you.
Thank you. Okay, approval of the agenda. Item 3, I have a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Chris, second by Carl. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous? Okay, informational sharing and discussion items. Unfortunately, the superintendent has been called away. So we are going to briefly move through the first 2 items. We had the hour before to meet everyone and to see the happenings of the Civic Life Project, the technology upgrades, the roof project. In your board packet was the district improvement plan, which is the superintendent's goals for the upcoming school year. I would like to move that item to next month so she would be able to thoroughly explain to us what her superintendent's goals are when she's available. So, without any objection. Thank you. Now, on to secondary education reorganization. At this time, I'd like to ask that the 2 CIATs, Sue Lombonsky and Patty Fazioli, will come, and we also have Mr. Campolito that worked tirelessly through the summer in the appointing positions for this reorganization. Patty, you're going. She's hiding.
I'll scoot over to you. I'll scoot out, I do.
No,
No.
you're not that lucky. Good.
Are we live on that screen?
No,
No.
no, that's for a later presentation. Is that your way?
No, sorry.
Okay.
Didn't want to miss any pictures.
Oh, okay.
Secondary education reform that was undertaken by Torrington Public Schools is actually a good example of something that has been kicking around in education for a while under the guise of terms like whole school reform or comprehensive school reform. So really what Torrington Public Schools has done is not anything that has not been tried before. Districts in states such as New York, Texas, Florida, Georgia, and even California have done things under the different titles of whole school reform or comprehensive school reform. The purpose of the secondary school reform 612 reorganization for Torrington Public Schools was to address the numerous changes that are coming in education, not only in Connecticut, but nationwide. In Connecticut, we specifically have got this year a new teacher evaluation program, which is also tied into a new administrator's evaluation program under the moniker of SEED. Which looks more comprehensively at what teachers and administrators are doing in schools in relationship to teaching and learning and getting across the important pieces of curriculum and instruction. We also have the Common Core State Standards that the state of Connecticut adopted that Torrington Public Schools are responsible for delivering to the students in our buildings. There are changes tied to that in our assessments. We're so used to hearing about CMT and CAP scores. But we also have different assessments coming that are smarter balanced assessments that you might be starting to hear monikers such as SBAC. Those are some of the things that are tied together with Common Core State Standards. And we also have the state that put forward some mandates on student success plans that look at the social and emotional growth component for students in our buildings to make sure that they are college and career ready. We want to make sure that all of our students are able to perform at high levels, whether they go to college when they leave Torrington High School or whether they go straight into the career force. By reorganizing the secondary schools in the way that Torrington Public Schools has done, we have created smaller communities within our buildings. With each of the middle school and the high school averaging over 1,000 students each, it's very difficult to keep track of all of our students. And so by shrinking down the communities of students to looking at grade-based learning, research has shown that that translates into better student academic performance over a course of a span of time. All students on every grade level, 6 through 12 inclusive, will have support, and they will become known by their administrator, who is a grade level administrator, the guidance counselor, who is now a grade level guidance counselor, a secretary who's going to be tied to that group who will be able to follow these students, and those students are really going to start to feel like they're part of a true caring community in a smaller microcosm within those big buildings. Because we all want what's best for our kids, and we want to make sure that when they get to school, that there are people there who know them, who care about them, who will keep track of them. And it'll help the parents also to know exactly who am I calling when I call that school and I need help with my son or my daughter. So that was a lot of the philosophy behind secondary school reform in Torrington Public Schools. And I'm going to turn it over to Sue Lebomsky to talk a little bit about the specific changes that were made.
So that being said, change is still difficult, and there's still anxiousness and uncomfortableness. But I think as we go through this whole process and people become more familiar with this model, parents will be much happier because they will have a contact person. If they have a concern, they can call the secretary. The secretary will have an administrator that they're working with. The students will hopefully feel that they are supported within this community. Even as adults, when do we work best? We work best in small communities, and that also mirrors what most of us do out in the outside world. When Patty was talking about being career ready or being college ready, that's the setting that they're going to find themselves in. So we want to really foster those small communities. I know being at the elementary schools, we have been very successful in our elementary schools, and we follow our students for 6 years. So we wanted to have that model occur from the middle school in those 3 years, and then again at the high school for those 4 years. This really addresses what Mr. Battle was talking about a little bit earlier. If you have smaller learning communities, then students are not going to fall through the cracks. If they're at the 99th or 100th percentile for that rare student, or if the student is coming to us with no language whatsoever at all, those students will not fall through the cracks. We have those safety nets in place to really address the needs of all of our students, and this is the best way we feel to address that. We have an absolutely fabulous dynamic team with our core of veterans who have been with us, as well as some incredibly strong administrators that are coming from a variety of different areas. We have some of those administrators here this evening, just so you get a name and a face. Starting at the middle school, Charlie McSpirit is bringing his wealth of experience from the high school down to the middle school. He will be the administrator for 6th grade. Neil Sullivan is coming to us from East Haven, and he will be our 7th grade administrator. Neil, if you'll just stand.
Good evening.
Thank you. And then Mary Ann Buchanan will round out that team at 8th grade. She's been a part of the middle school and providing that strength and that foundation at the middle school for a number of years with Patty. At 9th grade, we will have at the high school Jeff Shannon, who has been there now for a year, I think about half. Jeff, thank you for coming. Freddie Mojica will be in the 10th grade and be the assistant principal or the administrator for that grade level. Derek Bonnet is coming to us from Waterbury. Derek will be our 11th grade administrator. And then Linda Reitman is coming to us from Windsor. She'll be our 12th grade administrator. And rounding out our CAT team, our Curriculum Instruction Assessment and Technology for the Humanities, is Kathy Sosnowski. Kathy? And then the whole big umbrella, the person who's coordinating 6, 12, all of the curriculum instruction folks, myself included, is Eric Bain, and he's coming to us from Rockville High, and he's our secondary director, our director of secondary education. Thank you. I can tell you, I've worked with these folks over the last week, and sometimes folks who have been here a little bit longer, and I'm just so incredibly jazzed about their energy and their enthusiasm, their dedication to the educational process, to this process that we have going K through 6 through 12, really K through 12, if you're including all of our elementaries, as I think Cheryl's intent was, which is why my position as well, because I will also be coordinating with Patty, with Kathy, in terms of curriculum instruction, so that we really have consistency throughout the district. With all the initiatives coming down the pike, unless we're on the same page, lots of things would fall through the cracks, and we will not have consistency of program, and we would not be able to give our students what we really feel we are able to achieve with this new initiative. So we're very, very excited about that. As far as safety, because I did want to address what that other speaker had put forth, as we saw with Sandy Hook, every single person on the campus is responsible for the safety of our children. When they went through that process on December 14th, they were prepared, but they went beyond 3 deep. And we know now all of the administrators have been perma-trained. David Seta has made sure that we are all in table talk conversations where we are put in simulations, where we are problem solving a lot of those issues. So it's not just the principal anymore. Because that person, unfortunately, and I speak from having had that position, could be taken out in the blink of an eye. And so it's everyone. It could be the custodian that becomes the head person. It could be a substitute. It could be a first grade teacher. It could be anyone, the secretary. And so we all have to be trained. We are all responsible. And I think with this new model, it tells us that we are all responsible, that we all have leadership responsibilities. And in addition, with our new T-Val and with Common Core, let me tell you, that's where the rubber meets the road, because we all need to step up to the plate. We all have our professional responsibilities. So we're excited. Thank you.
Very excited.
We also handed out to everybody at the request of Fiona. She was trying to get, you can copy these in.
Is that okay with you?
Yes,
Yes, somebody just said yes.
yes, there are.
Is there one of them?
Yes.
The, Fiona had asked the question of what would a parent or student do, and what would the chain of command be for each grade level? So the chain of command, if there was an issue, this will also go to Mrs. Perla's comment. If there's a problem, you go to your teacher. If you can't get somewhere with your teacher, each grade level has an administrator, a secretary, a guidance counselor, and a special ed coordinator at every grade level. So if you had a curriculum issue that the teacher couldn't get to, you would go to that guidance counselor. And if the guidance counselor couldn't answer it, you would go to the administrator. And if the administrator can't answer it, then you go to the director of secondary ed, then the director of secondary ed would go to the superintendent, which would then go to the board. There's a graph actually over there, and it was in our board packet of how the chain of command would flow. If it was a special education question that the teacher couldn't answer, you would go to your special education coordinator for that grade level and then follow the same command. These people will rotate with that grade level as they pass on. In the middle school, they'll rotate 6 through 8, and then you'll get a new set in 9th grade, which will go 9 through 12. That's the current plan. There are some half guidance counselors because as freshmen and going into your sophomore year, there's an increase in need, so there's a floater between those two grade levels. And then the same doing the graduation and 12th grade, there's a floater there. So one of those, if you look at the chart, Christy would stay with the freshman and sophomore classes every year, because she would be that floater to help any additional workload that the people couldn't, that the guidance counselors would be overwhelmed with. And then the same with Joanna DeZurek on this list for junior and senior year. She would be there and not rotate up because she would be covering those two grades for her time in touring. But it identifies the administrator for each grade level, the secretary that'll be with each administrator. Are there any questions on the secondary education reorganization? Yeah.
It's difficult without Cheryl here, I'm not sure if you'll know the answer, but, so if a parent could not get in touch with their grade level administrator, would they go to another grade level administrator or right up to the director of secondary ed?
It would go to the director of secondary ed.
Okay. And then would the teachers kind of be under the same thing? So the grade 6 teachers would go to the grade 6 administrator?
Mhm.
And then if they weren't satisfied, they would go up to director?
Yeah, and then the next year when it's grade 7, those teachers for grade 7 would go to, and this, Charlie would move down to grade 7 and move down to grade 9.
So
Grading,
each
I'm
year,
sorry.
the teachers would have a different administrator?
Yes. For their grade level. Chris?
Again, I don't know if this is right to ask you, but for our programs that service special needs students 9 through 12, are they just going to designate a single administrator? Or would it, you know, the life skills at the high school?
I'm looking to our two specialists because I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
Chris, can you just clarify for me so that I can answer that appropriately?
So one, so a program that services 9 through 12,
Yep.
like a life skills program or
Yep.
something like that. What would the chain of command be in that situation? What would it be in that situation?
For one of
teachers?
the programs, so I'm speaking from middle school frame of reference because that's what I'm most
Sure.
familiar with. The life skills group would be assigned to one of the grade level administrators chosen for that.
Okay.
But there would also be a comprehensive approach because in those programs, you're gonna have multiple grade students. So you're gonna have opportunities for other administrators and other guidance counselors to go in there and help. Again, it's about sort of blanketing those students to make sure that they feel safe and secure and they've got the support and the families understand that also, that they know who they needed to speak to, who they needed to talk to. But ultimately, for those special programs, we're gonna do what we need to do to help those kids.
And ditto for the teachers too?
Yes, for those teachers in those special programs, same thing, yes.
Thank you.
There's also the CIATs, Curriculum, Instruction, Assessment, and Technology. Okay.
Right.
That there's two for secondary education and there's one for elementary education. So they would also be, they're administrators that can help if there's a situation. Andrew?
First question is, who does the teacher evaluation? It's been done up until now, it's the assistant principals and the principal at the high school did the teacher evaluation. Who will do the teacher evaluations as we go forward?
It's a large breakdown of who will take the evaluations because there are so many. Okay, overall, it will be the grade level representative. So for 9th grade, it would be Jeff Shannon for his 9th grade advisory teachers. Okay, so that would be the teacher. So he'll have some portion of the teachers. But in addition, okay, Kathy would take on the English teachers in grades 6 through 12. So she'll take that piece. Patty would take on the math teachers in grades 6 through 12. We also have Beth Robin taking on a number of people that she works with that are PPS staff, such as school psychologists and speech teachers. We have a variety of different people that are taking on the evaluations. Otherwise, what would happen is that one administrator at that grade level would have 40 to 45 evaluations, which is impossible, because it would be the teachers at their grade level or the teachers in their advisory, and then in addition, or homeroom, whatever makes more sense to you. And in addition, it would be all the special ed teachers, all of the PPS staff, and. So you couldn't possibly do that. Does that
So,
make sense?
Walter, hang on. But just, I want to clarify for you.
Yeah.
The new teacher evaluation standard that was just passed down from the state limits an administrator to 26 teachers because they increased, it's 30 hours, correct?
Yes.
For an evaluation?
Yes.
So if you take if you give a teacher 30 students and they have to do 30 hours, that's 900 hours. They're only in school 1,200 hours a year. So with this new criteria from the state for teacher evaluation, it will essentially absorb all of an administrator's time. So in the reorganization, the CIAT people have their 092s and the director of secondary ed, so that we can take the staff and divide it up so that we have enough administrators to handle the volume of teachers that we have under the new standard, because you have to have a documented 30 hours of evaluation. So
what used to be done by a principal and 2 assistant principals at the high school?
Yes.
3 will now be, now you will have 4, we'll get to that later, what they actually are.
Right.
4 people plus 2 CIAT people, plus will the director of
Half.
secondary be part of this?
half,
Pardon?
half.
Half, what do you mean half?
He's on 2
He's-
schools.
Okay,
So
well,
he
so
will not
now
be-
what you went from 4
Right.
doing evaluation, now you'll actually have 6.5.
But you have to remember, the requirements are much.
Yes.
I'm not making a judgment, I'm just.
Okay, but I'm just trying to clarify for you as well.
Yeah, but to answer your
Because-
question, there'll be 6.5 people doing the evaluations.
Of
at
what
40.
used to be 4.
Correct. And you, Andrew, if you'd like, I can get you a grid of who's doing what. No, if that will
Yeah,
provide you more
yeah.
information, if you'd
Well,
like.
and to further that topic while we're on it, we don't have enough administrators to evaluate our staff by the new standard. We don't, because to cut it to 25 per person, and then you add in the paraprofessionals, the secretaries, the nurses, the custodians, everybody else that has to be evaluated, there just is, I mean, an administrator does not have enough time in their entire year to meet this new standard that was passed down.
Okay,
So, I mean, that's just so you know, I mean, it's off the charts what you have to do.
okay, so then the next question is, I see that all of these people are called administrators. The concept of a vice principal has been eliminated at the middle school and the high school?
They're grade level leaders. They have a credential
Their
of
title
their
will
own
be
92.
assistant principal.
Okay, their title is assistant principal.
Yes.
But an assistant principal usually means that there's actually a principal. It can't be an assistant to nothing. So I'm they seem minor questions, but they're just questions that people want to know. Do we still have the old concept of principals, assistant principals? Do people want to know who's in charge and who are these people?
Your director of secondary education is in charge of whole class.
Okay, but he is a central office administrator, so we don't have, yes, your chart says he's a central office administrator. He is not in the bargaining group of administrators.
He is not in the bargaining unit, no.
Right, so the principals have always been in the bargaining group of administrators. So now that position
And
is,
the principals still are.
we don't have principals, we only have
We have
assistants.
principals at the elementary level.
Right. What?
Principals are still in the bargaining unit.
I'm only asking questions that are.
I'm just answering your question.
Right,
Principals are
and
still in
but
the
your
bargaining unit.
answers, you know, I mean, it's like you and I can go back and
No, I'm
forth.
just-
Who actually makes a determination that your answer is sufficient? I guess it would be at some point, the so-called administrators / vice principals, if they think that this reorganization complies with their administrative contract. And you talk to the administrative leadership to ask that they're no longer being vice principals, but being classified as administrators is sufficient. They're copacetic with that.
We're in negotiation. If you're asking her, she's not involved in it. The
Well, I
Board
mean,
of
I'm looking at her, she's nodding her
I'm saying
head.
the Board of Education is in negotiations with the TPSAA on the questions you're asking.
Okay, I would, the fact that you did state that the Director of Secondary Education is not a central office administrator raises questions that I think you should not, I'm not saying that you should know it or not know it, but I think you should find out whether or not that
It is
this
a
person-
position not in the bargaining unit.
which makes that position a central office.
You would like to term it a
Right,
central
well, I
office
mean-
position, you go right ahead and term it that.
Right, so,
Yes, sir.
The argument, look at, we're in the business of running a school district. These decisions were made on the basis of trying to change what has been a completely dysfunctional handoff from middle school to high school. Now, the only key question, it's not what you call it, Andrew, in my opinion. The key question from a management perspective, is this a line function or not a line function? That's all the Board of Education really cares about. That position as director is a line function. He's got direct reports, he evaluates direct reports, he promotes, hires, fires these people. That's a line function. I don't care what we call him, you know. If other people want to quibble about that, that's all for secondary purposes, has nothing to do with the effectiveness of this educational model, period, okay? It is not central office, non-line function, it is line function. From a management perspective, that's all you need as a Board of Education member to understand.
no,
Now, let's get
I
off
need to
this.
know that
Thank you, Paul.
we've
The
eliminated,
Director of Secondary Ed will be housed in the two schools.
As a proper line functionary should be.
I would think that as a member of Board of Ed, you would be concerned to have clearly defined
It's extremely clearly
labels for people that work in this school district.
Extremely
And,
clearly defined.
Well,
Is there-
you don't
why
even
you
know
ask
that-
other board members if they have any, is
Well,
there
I-
anybody here who does not understand what this function is? Is there anybody here, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Point of order, could you please do a poll, straw poll, ask if anybody here has any kind of misconception about what this line function
Is
is?
there anyone here that has a misconception as to what the administrators at the grade levels are?
fantastic.
Okay. We,
There you go.
and to answer your question of earlier,
Yes.
we are in negotiations with TPSAA for the title of these positions.
And then just the last comment, which was, she says, everyone will be responsible for basically the welfare and running of the school district. And my answer to anyone who says everyone's responsible, that's just one more way of saying nobody's
She
responsible.
didn't say running of it, she said the
What did
safety.
she say?
She
The
said the safety.
Yeah, so if
Safety is
everyone's
not running the
responsible.
school, safety is,
Okay.
was the
Then-
answer to
then
the
let me
question that was brought up.
Okay, then, when somebody says everyone's responsible for the safety of the school and the students, then nobody's ultimately responsible for the safety of the schools. And when you start saying that the janitor may be some point in line, the next in line to
If everybody
responsibility.
else is dead, Andrew, he's the only one left. Go to the military. If the general gets shot, it's the next one in line. If that one gets shot, it's the next one in line.
Mr. Chairman, in point of fact, the director, this position.
I want to know who's responsible for this school district.
Right.
Now, what is so hard to figure out?
For the school district or for the
For,
K-12?
well, what are we concerned about? We're concerned about who's responsible for each student in this school district.
Yes.
Superintendent.
Okay, superintendent, and then who's next? We used to have an assistant superintendent, then we used to have principals in each of these buildings. Now we no longer have an assistant superintendent, we no longer have principals, we no longer have assistant principals in the secondary.
Well, but wait a minute, we have grade level assistant principals, there are 7 of them identified by name on the paper
It's a
in front
very
of you.
clarifying function here.
You
The
instead of
director of
having two
secondary education is
principals,
responsible for the safety of the middle school and the high school. The principals are responsible for the safety of their schools. They all report ultimately to the superintendent.
Yes.
I'm not sure how much simpler we can make it for you.
there's a,
Gee, you know, it's so simple, it's amazing that there's 165 other school districts
yes.
that, any of these school districts have no principal in a building?
I don't know.
Think of
Why don't
each
we
grade
know?
level as its own school within a school, is the best way to.
Yeah, I understand that.
If you understand that, then we're.
I understand that you're saying that and it sounds wonderful,
Right, we've
but
got
it's
a,
not
Andrew,
reality.
Andrew, unfortunately, we've had a point of order to move on for this topic. What is your next question? You said you had multiple.
You didn't have the real answer to the evaluation of teachers. You're saying it's gonna be broken down amongst everyone. And, one more question. Grade 9 administrator, that rotates or
Yes,
does it rotate?
rotates.
I thought that there was one point when that question was asked, the grade 9 administrator always stayed the grade 9 administrator.
The answer you were given at that board meeting was that the model that they were looking at that point was that the grade 9 administrator would be fixed, but they were entertaining a model where the grade 9 administrator rotated.
And that happened over the summer, that changed.
It was a model the administration was looking at. Yes.
Okay, so that would be new to the board,
Yes.
that concept. But apparently, Mr. Cavanero says all the board members understand all of this.
No, I didn't say that. Every single board member said that.
Well, I mean,
That's why he pulled it.
okay,
That
well,
would be the difference.
Let's continue.
Are you all set?
beyond great.
Okay. Mr. Cavanero.
Listen, there's a lot of questions about evaluations. Tonight, the meeting that you want to talk about the evaluation process, because I've got a bunch of questions myself. If this is not the time, then I would strongly
We are
recommend we
going
put that
to,
on the agenda. for
we are
next
going to
meeting.
get in September, when it is all finally vetted out through the state,
All right,
of
fine.
what the actual requirements will be. I'm actually going to go to the Board of Finance, because when we did our budget,
Yep.
we were asked to trim any unforeseeable costs. We had money in there for costs that we thought of mandates that might be coming down, and we were requested by the
Right.
Board of Finance to trim those. With this new teacher evaluation format that's coming down, we would need to hire, it's either 3 or 4 additional administrators to do it according to state statute. So when that number is steadfast to us, which we're supposed to have this coming week, I'm gonna go to the Board of Finance's next meeting and say, according to an unfunded mandate that just came down, if we're going to follow the rules, we need money and people. And then we're gonna do a presentation to the board of what that new statute will be.
In line with what Mr.
Archie.
Nargi has been talking around, I too would like to see on that particular point, what, if there are other, how other school districts are, this scalability of evaluation, that disconnect is pertains to Torrington, it pertains across the state.
Yes.
So I would like the superintendent, or her off, somebody, I would like the superintendent's report to include what other school districts besides Torrington are doing to address that exact problem, okay?
She's actually working with the superintendent group.
Terrific.
That,
So she can
'cause
report back on
yeah,
that.
they're all in
We're
turmoil.
all facing the
on
same
it.
thing, and
Yes.
I'll be damned if we're gonna hire people.
Everybody's just sitting here trying to figure out how to do what the state's passing down.
Great, thank you.
And you're saying this is gonna have retroactive application?
Well, it's for this current year. They passed it at the end of June, starting July 1st, correct? So it is in effect right now. But they don't have all of the final facts passed to us yet, because it's still being,
So how if they don't have all the facts of what they want, how can it have retroactive effect I'm not arguing with
Well,
you,
no,
I'm just.
you've never gotten a retroactive tax? I mean, that happens all the time. I mean, we're gonna adjust your income tax from that, and you just pay it. So this is just one of those situations where government has said, for this school year, this is what they want, and we'll have to deal with it.
And this report will include the administrator's evaluation as well?
It'll be
Yeah, I mean, that's extremely clear. And are these just yearly evaluations, or are they twice? Are there midterm evaluations?
It's one,
There
Well-
are, you want me to?
yeah, go ahead.
Okay. There are mid-year evaluations of administrators, also of teachers. It
Right.
follows the process. And just to answer your question, Andrew, what's happening is we're all going through the SEED training, or we've been through the SEED training as administrators. And as Ken was trying to explain, literally, there are pieces of the binder that the state has formulated for these trainings. And at every training so far that all administrators have gone to, they've said, take out section 2 and replace it with this. And now take out section 3 and replace it with this. So the state is continuing to refine this process, but we do need to use this evaluation document for this year, and we will keep revising it and updating it as per the state, because that's what we have to do, as they tell us what to change. But there are some mandates that are pretty consistent. We are going to have to do more evaluations. We are going to have to do at least 3 observations of our first and second year teachers. We are going to have to do 3 observations of our tenured teachers, but only 1 will be a formal observation. I don't think those things will change. But the state is continuing to tweak the document, as Ken was saying, and we're trying to just stay up to snuff with that, that's all.
And the training is going on this week. 1 week before school starts, you're getting your training. And by the way, have a nice year. So it's like just being crammed into a very small period of time that the administrators are going now.
And there can be anywhere, for one teacher can have anywhere from 3 to up to 6 observations by an administrator. So it's not every teacher and you're hitting them once. You're hitting those teachers multiple times throughout the year. So just to clarify that, I think, Mr. Cavanero, that was your question about mid-year evaluations. There could be 3, there could be as many as 6.
Observations, not exactly the same, it's not the same. In the private sector, you set goals, and then halfway through the
Evaluation and
year,
observation are
you
synonymous.
measure against the year, you have
Right.
the midterm performance, quite frankly.
Yes, you're doing a mid-year performance review, absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
so, at the meeting, at last at this point, we'll have, not just to Mr. Nargi, but to the whole board, I mean, I'd love to see as well, who's evaluating whom? It's extremely critical. This whole thing fails without,
What we're going to have for the
Effective
September
evaluations.
meeting is it was requested at personnel, was the actual staff at every building.
yeah,
With the shifting of paras and attendance right up until the start of school, we're going to do the detail, we have the projected number of teachers and paras and secretaries at each building. But, once school begins and we have the actual enrollment, for the September meeting, we're going to have the broken down list of every person and their position and title in every building. And we can put a column in there for who they're being evaluated by, so that you'll see the list of who's evaluating who.
and for my sake, I mean, as far as how many teachers being, don't go, because I could just see Superintendent Clarko going crazy about, is it 26 or 27, because there's so many, don't go, we don't need that level of detail. We need, a good approximate, this is about what they're gonna be doing, that's what we need. Okay, executive summary of this.
Mr. Kissinger.
We are in negotiations with the administrators over these positions.
Yes,
Why hasn't the negotiating committee met with them?
because the request came in 2 days ago.
Okay, so we
We're
are
setting a date
going
to start
begin.
negotiations with
Okay.
them. But they have communicated to us that they would like to start a negotiation on job titles and clarifications on a few things. And I forwarded that on to Mr. McSpirit to contact Fiona, because she's the chair of both the negotiation committee and the grievance committee, so it would end up going there. And I get to pass it on. Yes?
I'm just wondering if in the report we can have a comparison of the old evaluation system as to how many more man hours, how many more hours it's going to be required, just as a point of comparison. 'Cause to me, just
we need X amount is, means nothing, I need to know where we're coming from.
Right, well, when you'll see it, each elementary school was done by that principal. So now when you see an elementary school with 46 teachers, you'll see 2 different administrators doing those. So you'll see the change, but I'll ask her to put.
Make it really idiot.
She beat you. Ellen,
Could we also have the mandate?
you want the actual,
No. Of like a synopsis
Okay.
of the mandate, you know, that, so that we have.
Yes. yes,
you
a
know.
breakdown of
Right.
what's expected?
Right.
I hope you're writing all this down.
Yeah, we got it. We got it covered.
Thank you.
Excuse the simplicity of the question, but I want to know what our net gain is for secondary administration. It looks like we have 2 administrators gain, a director of secondary, 3 CAIT, director of guidance, and at that, we're losing an assistant superintendent and 2 principals. Unless I'm missing that.
No, the principal positions net out with the assistant principal positions.
Right, no, I
So
understand that.
you gain the 2 CIAT positions, you gain the director of guidance position, and you gain the director of secondary ed in the non-bargaining unit. Okay. So your net increase to administrators is 3.
It's 3, right.
In the unit.
Right.
Yes.
So the bottom line though for the district should be the understanding that as we have limited resources, i.e. money, we're going to, instead of having more of that money put to have teachers teaching kids, we're going to spend more of that money hiring more high-priced administrators to observe the teachers who are going to teach the kids.
Yeah, that would be the bottom line.
And I understand that we try to deal only with our little problems in this school district, but again, it's like the only way you get the message to Hartford is that all of these little school districts start to question why we need more administrators observing so-called professionals, which I would like to think teachers are professionals, who know what they're doing, but instead they are coming from the observation that teachers really aren't professionals and they need even more observation, more caring, more guidance than before. So where's the direction of education if that's the direction that Hartford thinks that the education profession, i.e. the teachers, the ones in the classroom, are really less competent and they need more support?
I would say that appears to be the direction you're in.
Or it could be because districts haven't done a good job of evaluating in the past. When I came on the board, we were only evaluating 40% of our teachers. And every year we've worked on getting our evaluations done, but that's not fair to kids either when we're not evaluating.
And it's great in some ways, but when you still have zero and X amount of money, and money isn't being printed anymore, then it's still a value decision that all boards should be taking into consideration, which we constantly do every year at the budget, which is, do we get more teachers in the classrooms or do we put more people in administration? Just a basic concept all boards have to do.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Andrew is entirely correct. Teachers do not need the amount of help that administrators or state lawmakers think they do. So if that's your implication,
that's
you
what
are
I'm
entirely
saying.
correct. Teachers are very capable of doing with a lot less supervision. There may be teachers who need more than others, but for the most part, this is over supervision.
And remember, that's not only are you spending more money on the, I know this is kind of esoteric in the sense that it's really a moot conversation, but you really have, what's the most important thing in education is having teachers have time and energy to actually work with kids. And the more time and effort that they have to dealing with paperwork and evaluation process means less time they're going to have with the day-to-day giving to students. I mean, that's just they only got so much time. I mean, it's like money. It's limited resource. So if you want all your time is for teachers to be dealing with administrators and doing paperwork and shuffling paperwork, kids are gonna get less time. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to D, District Annual Performance Report and Determination 2011-2012. It's in your packet. The superintendent received a letter from the Commissioner of Education, which said at two-thirds of the way down, after you get through all of the legal notifications, that according to the data used from your district's annual performance report, the Connecticut State Department of Education would like to acknowledge your district's efforts in being one of the 153 districts to be assigned to meets requirements in the identified areas used to make the determination for the 11-12 school year. So they have gotten around to evaluating our 11-12 school year.
What page is that?
This one.